Today we're gonna talk about the push and pull technique that really allows you to loosen up your watercolor sketch. It really will help you loosen up. Let's go. Okay, let's talk about what the techniques mean, and then we'll show you a very simple, quick demo, and then you can go try it, and then you let me know in the description below whether it works for you, and then how whether you've hit any snags or problems. So what is pushed technique? As you know, this is watercolor, so you'll be painting with a lot of color. I'm just awakening my colors. They have been dry for a couple of days, so I'm just spritzing it. Okay, so for pushed, imagine you've already laid down a nice little watercolor puddle, a shape like such. And what you're trying to do is to push the pigment to the edge or to one side. And how do you do it? Well, you load your brush with clean water, and while the puddle is still slightly moist or wet, not too wet, you do want to make sure that it is not too watery. It's somewhat moist, and then what do you do? Well, you use water to push the pigment to the edge or to one side as such. And because, as you can see, the puddle is too much, you will dry it up, and then you will repeat it with clean water to push the pigments to one side again, depending on where you want to push it, right? You can push it using gravity, and you can just use water to push the pigment to one corner or one side. Simple, right? Very, very simple. That's the push technique. As you can see, when it dries, the pigments will show up on one corner or on the edge. The pull technique is the opposite. You put a very dense amount of pigment on one corner or on one dab or someplace on the sketchbook, and you use a clean brush to pull the pigment using water to wherever you want to pull it. You can have using water to kind of carry the pigment. It will flow somewhat, and towards the other side of the shape you would see that it has less pigment. The pigment will be concentrated on one side, but you'll be pulled as much as you can with water on the other side. Okay, so that's basically the push and pull technique. Not very difficult. With a bit of practice, you will definitely get the idea of how you push and how you pull pigments in your sketches. Remember, each of these is a shape. They don't have to be square. It can be any shape, organic, inorganic, abstract, whatever it is, but it's a shape. And the shape can be then sketched using a push or a pull technique. Okay, we're going to use this photograph for demo. Well, alright, it's too complicated. There's just too much shape. We're going to zoom in to a part of it like such. So no worries, it's going to be only a part of it, and I'm just going to show you how to use the push and pull technique on a sketch like this, or any other sketch for that matter. But the techniques can be applied. Well, it can be applied to the whole of the sketches in all the shapes, or only a few of the shapes. It's really up to you. Okay, so while I'm drawing a part of this, this fruits, sketch, as you know, this is a series of tips that I'm giving out on how to loosening up. If you have not seen the other videos, here's the playlist. I hope that you will check it out because there are other good tips before this. Here's the link. I'm hoping to get to 10 or 12 loosening up sketch tips, and then you can try them all at some point, or at least add them into your arsenal of sketching tricks or techniques. Watercolor is such a fun medium to do. It allows you to try so many techniques, but it can be very complicated and slightly bewildering, right? So as you can see, I'm going to start with a simple dab. This is going to be a pull technique. Lots of pigment, dark green if you like. And I'm going to use a clean brush to, in fact, I'm going to use a very light green color to pull it up so that it melts between the dark green and the light green into a single shape of the stem of the pepper, right? So again, it's really pulling the pigment away. And then as you can see, the bottom pepper, it's light green in color. I dab some of the light green and I use clean color to pull the colors or pigments away from the dab. Same thing here, a dab of colors, and then I'm going to use water, clean water. I wash my brush clean and I pull the pigment down. All the time though, I'm conscious of not making it boring by sticking to a single pigment hue. The colors that I use are mixed. There's light green, which is rich green gold on my palette, and then there is phthalo green, blue shade, and I dab a little bit of permanent alizarin crimson into it just to neutralize the green. But it's the same thing. I mixed it and then I dab it in and then I pull the pigment away using my pull technique. Personally, I use a lot more pull technique than pushed, simply because I find pushed a lot more work. And I'm a very lazy sketcher, so I pull all the time because it's easy to dab the color and then pull it. Well, you don't have to learn from me that way. In other words, don't learn my laziness. If you find push more interesting, because it is actually a more interesting characteristics. If you look at it, push has a much more beautiful edge than pull. So I hope you use both of them. Don't be a lazy sketcher like me. But then again, most people would, do what the teacher do, not what the teacher say. So, but each his or her own, right? But experiment, play with it. Be playful. Just learn to be playful and enjoy the process, so to speak. So as you can see, the sketch looks very, very loose because it is not a flat wash. A flat wash is where it's completely same color, same tone, same, basically the same amount of pigment all across the entire shape, right? There's a time and place for a flat wash, but if you want your sketch to be loosed, then you use either the push or the pull technique, and your sketch will look very, very loosed, just like so. In fact, I would say that it's really about having as little pigment on one side and having as much pigment on one side. The have should have more, and the have not should have fewer. Sounds wrong if you're talking about money, but when it comes to watercolor, it's absolutely right, especially if you want to loosen up. You will also see that I use varying type of hues, different pigments and so on. And I'm very conscious of following what I see, but at the same time taking lots of liberty with the technique itself. And it really is to create a sense of shape differentiation, shape separation, but again, I don't have a problem if the shape melt into each other, because that also is a form of loosening up. But I do want to make sure the shapes are readable. Readable meaning the eyes can see that it's a stem, it's a piece of pepper, it's a red pepper, it's a green pepper, and so on and so forth. That really is just the essence of the sketch in that sense, right? So, but as you can see, there's just non-conformity in the amount of pigment across the various shapes here. Well, we're almost done with the demo actually, and as you can see, I'm just continuing with the various shapes. One thing I'm very conscious really is the contrast. So I want to make sure that it is not an even contrast across. In other words, I don't want my sketch to look all mid-tone across. Well, especially if you use a your camera and then you switch it to gray or noir, as in on iPhone has a setting called noir. Go look it up if you don't know how to do it. You will see that the sketch should have uneven dark spots, and it's not evenly across neutral, mid-tone, or all dark or all light, right? So you see that it is dark and it's very, very dark on some spots, and it's very, very light on some other spot. That play of contrast is what makes a sketch interesting, and in fact it also makes it much more loose, the way it at least when you look at it, it's a lot more loose. Alright, so that's it. It's a very important concept to loosen up, push and pull. I hope you try it, and well, stay safe wherever you are. Okay, bye.